Mercedes cornered. Hot measurements already in Australia. There's an extremely interesting development in the 2026 Formula One theme. Do you remember the dispute between Ferrari, Honda, and Audi against the Mercedes engine, and the trick used to increase the compression ratio? It would seem they managed to increase by a couple of points the ratio from 16:1 to 18:1. And what's been discovered about how it works is incredible. But before discovering exactly how the Mercedes trick works, what will happen in Australia, and what role Red Bull will play, stay until the end. Because what you're about to hear is explosive. Creating with this a technical advantage, we're talking about approximately 15 extra horsepower of power, and something very interesting, also a significant improvement in the power unit's overall efficiency itself. In a phase where power unit efficiency, meaning optimal use of available energy resources, is an extremely interesting and important element to achieve in modern Formula One where every advantage counts. But we've asked ourselves many times in the past whether this trick was actually realized by Mercedes engineers and perhaps also by Red Bull ones, and how exactly it was realized in practice. Well, to reveal the content of this question, to perhaps resolve this doubt, is an extremely interesting article published on Auto, Motor, and Sport that refers to a conversation German journalists had with expert engineers with multi-year experience in the Formula One field. Well, the explanation they give for realizing the Mercedes idea is an extremely interesting explanation that goes beyond the material dilations hypothesized by someone previously, which I never believed in from the beginning. There was erroneous talk of connecting rod dilation, but the connecting rod is the element that's most stressed of all under compression when combustion occurs. Imagine if one could think of hot dilation of the connecting rod's length to reduce volume in the combustion chamber. It makes no engineering sense. But the explanation Auto, Motor, and Sport gives is different and extremely interesting from a technical standpoint. What's the idea? You remember how compression ratio is measured? It's a ratio between two terms, a numerator where there's the sum of cylinder volume plus combustion chamber volume, and in the denominator there's only the combustion chamber volume. Consequently, if I decrease the denominator's absolute value, and therefore the combustion chamber volume, effectively during operation, I increase the ratio's result significantly. And so what did Mercedes technicians think of? They created a supplementary chamber next to the spark plug ignition zone. This microchamber with amplitude equal to about 1 cubic centimeter has a rather thin passage with the true combustion chamber, the one where the air-fuel mixture ignites. What happens? It happens that if I measure the volume, meaning the displacement that remains unchanged plus the combustion chamber, by inserting this extra cubic centimeter, I obtain a certain value that respects the regulatory limit of 16:1 when measured cold. But when the power unit is running, so we find ourselves in conditions no longer cold but hot during actual operation, the compressed gases during the combustion phase fill this additional volume connected with the small passage until saturating it completely. Practically, they saturate this supplementary small chamber of 1 cubic centimeter, and when the mixture ignites, the only space that remains usable is that of the true combustion chamber, without the supplementary volume at all. Because that is filled completely, and consequently, I obtain a decrease in my fraction's denominator. Because the combustion chamber is where ignition actually occurs, but doesn't include the additional small volume, because this is now full, completely saturated, and the orifice doesn't let other stuff pass through. So therefore, with this stratagem, I very skillfully managed to increase the compression ratio when the engine is actually running. Increasing the compression ratio inevitably means having advantages in performance terms, in energy efficiency terms, which in modern Formula One can make all the difference. Now, my impression is this system is strongly irregular because by equipping my thermal unit with a supplementary small volume that has the sole purpose of bypassing the technical regulation limit, I in fact evade the limit given by technical regulations. It's taking the mickey because I insert in the head an additional cubic centimeter small volume whose sole purpose is creating a filling that acts as a plug during operation. So I'm creating a system to evade regulations. I don't violate them blatantly, but I evade them cleverly. It's a technical solution, in my opinion, technically achievable with some research and experimentation, so investing significant time for which it's not even a technical solution easily reachable by adversaries in a short time frame. As we emphasized last weekend, this would have been a rather important week regarding the Mercedes engine case. And the two meetings that occurred seem to have brought not insignificant developments to the situation. According to what Corriere dello Sport reported in their edition, in fact, the FIA would have decided to change the ways in which compression ratio measurements are performed going forward. According to the first regulation version, they would have been performed cold at ambient temperature. From the Australian GP, instead, these checks will change and will be performed hot through heating of V6 engine pieces performed statically without the engine running. The FIA has therefore accepted to change measurement criteria after the clarification letter sent already several months ago by Ferrari, Audi, and Honda requesting this modification. Moreover, to modify the regulation introducing these new measurements, unanimity won't be necessary, but a qualified majority composed of the FIA, Formula 1, and 4 engine manufacturers out of 5 will suffice to pass the change. Therefore, Red Bull's position will be decisive for reaching this qualified majority, which at first remained neutral, not signing the clarification letter sent by the other 3 engine manufacturers. Now, however, Red Bull's position seems to have changed decisively, and therefore there are all prerequisites to reach the already mentioned qualified majority that would lead to new compression ratio checks, always static but performed hot. Enrico Gualtieri, Ferrari power unit head, on the occasion of the Ferrari SF26 presentation, had declared having full confidence in the FIA for a resolution of this case before the season start. And the federation kept faith with the commitment to clarify a regulatory gray area that led to different interpretations among the various manufacturers. This situation is complex and multifaceted. On one hand, the Mercedes microchamber is ingenious from an engineering perspective, but it's clearly a regulation evasion. Like tax evasion, technically lawful but morally questionable and unfair to competitors. 15 horsepower advantage can decide championships over an entire season. And the fact it requires significant time to be replicated makes everything even more unfair to other teams. Fortunately, the FIA finally reacts decisively. Hot measurements from the Australian GP should unmask the trick completely. When pieces are heated, the small chamber fills with compressed gas, and the ratio will exceed 16:1. At that point, Mercedes will have to remove it or face a lengthy regulatory battle they might not win. The fact that unanimity isn't needed but only qualified majority is crucial for getting this change through. And Red Bull changing position is fundamental to reaching that majority. Too often, the FIA turned a blind eye to dubious solutions in the past. This time, I hope they do the right thing for the sport. Sport must be fair and competitive. Gray areas must be closed quickly, not exploited for months, giving unfair advantages. Australia will be the moment of truth when hot measurements reveal everything. If you enjoyed discovering the Mercedes trick and what will happen in Australia, let me know what you think. Should the FIA immediately ban this microchamber, or is it legitimate engineering ingenuity?